PM. Roll call.
Blackwell. Campbell.
Present.
Collins.
Present.
Zachary.
Present.
Yossi.
Present.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dockery, second by Campbell, approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Ayes have it. Number 3, we have a presentation, Chad Hatter on waste and expert plan and the report. Ms. Adam, I'll pass it to you and pass it to them. Okay, all right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Mayor. We're finalizing the master plan report that we've been going over for the last few months. So I have Shane Euler here with me. Shane leads our water and wastewater group here in the Quad Cities office. So him and his team have kind of been taking the lead on this study and the report. So he's going to kind of walk you through some of the findings that you see in the report today, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you all may have as well.
Right on. So, just like, should we be using?
Yeah, you just flip the button up on there.
You don't want that. So, hey, thank you. Just a couple things. So on the master plan, we've worked with Jeff and Nevada and Tony on it. Our understanding is this is just a very high level overview. More than welcome to go into details and things like that as well. But for our part, there's no formal presentation, just a very high overview of what we were doing. And so part of the master plan is just looking at the growth across the city and trying to get ahead of, there might be a development here or there. And instead of just serving that development, what's the bigger picture of that whole area? And so what should that sewer or trunk main, as we call them, major conveyance lines or treatment be? So that's kind of what we looked at. And so there's some big numbers as far as costs, but just please realize that's as you grow. And we're just trying to set the stage. I think Zach and I visited a little bit about, just as an example, is I think this dates back to the 90s before our time, but that Shive was involved with the city was just north of Black Hawk Trail. East of the highway, there's a development. And that development is probably, if you wanted to serve it with sewer, might be an 8-inch pipeline. But people had the forethought to say, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot more growth potential. And so across the highway with a 21-inch pipe, just thinking about the future so you don't have 5 or 6 crossings under the highway or upsizing that pipeline. That's kind of the goal of the master plan. It's just that. There's some good news in the master plan is the city can, and by design, I would like to say, is there is capacity to grow. If you look at South Slope and kind of the overall things, collection system, could probably grow about 1 million gallons a day. MGD, there's a lot of acronyms. To put that into perspective, just on a max month or kind of a max 30-day, the treatment plant is treating about 1.4 million gallons. So that's quite a bit of growth that can be supported at your treatment facility. And then there's always caveats, right? So sticking on the wastewater treatment plant, those things take time to develop from review, permitting, funding, design, just through all the steps through, hey, now we can treat more water. That's probably 3 or 4 years. So one of the triggers is that, hey, once you get to about 80% of that capacity, you want to look at um, an improvement so you can keep growing through those 3 or 4 years. So the wastewater treatment plant and the overall system can do about 1 MGD. About half of that, once you reach at that point, that's probably a good trigger to start thinking about the next capital improvements. Again, realizing that's 3 or 4 years to fully implement. Kind of going up into the collection system. There's, again, quite a bit of growth. There's certain areas that might be limiting capacity, but overall we can grow. A couple of those is we did look out west, the city, and I think we wrapped up about 2020-21, the buttermilk conveyance system. And that's really that was with the forethought of growing out west. It has capacity, but as we keep going out west, we got to bring more in, and there more infrastructure to convey that flow. And then there is some interest kind of it's I say way out there. It's probably 2 miles away from the nearest city sewer system, but there's some industrial park and development. It's about 2 miles of infrastructure. Can't really do that by gravity that far, so it takes some lift stations and those type. In a way, we looked at that, looked at overall development, plus what would it take just to kind of serve that if that developed earlier. But bringing that in, tying that into what the city is already invested in is that Buttermilk Lagoon transmission is sized to handle that.
And when you're talking directly far west, you're referring to the property. There's been discussion about annexing into the city, but that's not in the city yet, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. That'll take a big lift station down in that draw, and then we can gravity from that lift station.
Absolutely right, Brent. Yep. And we nicknamed that the annex area. But yeah, it's on if you can go as far as west as you can to the city boundary, and then it's right outside of that. It's just a ways out there. Also looking at, again, that whole corridor through that buttermilk conveyance system is ready to take on gravity. Already kind of mentioned the line across the highway there. As we go farther up north, there's another industrial park in the northeast side of the city, and it can take on about 250,000 gallons a day of future growth. Put that into perspective, what's going on now, it's about twice that kind of development and flow. Of course, with industry and commercial, it's how much do they actually use and discharge. So it's not always linear, but there's growth. And then we did kind of find out a little bit about the golf course lift station that is located on the golf course, just as the name would suggest. And at times it can, especially the capacity is fine, except when we get really heavy rains and it's kind of short. So, meaning that it's having a hard time keeping up with today's flows under heavy rain events. That could be a limiting factor as we continue to grow.
Is Is that from infiltration or being overtaken by the water flow going down through that rock?
From what we can tell, and some more study probably should be done on this, but from what we could tell, it seems to be I, infiltration inflow. It takes, my understanding is a pretty heavy rain, and then it'll get overtaken, but recovers fairly quickly.
So
So,
it's something we might want to do, look at slip lining projects in that area to try to cut some of that down.
yeah, that could help for sure. And once that gets improved, it pumps into gravity flow that then conveys water down to the wastewater plant. So as we expand that gravity flow needs to be improved as well. If you pump more in, it's got to be able to handle when the pumps are on.
At one time, we had a restriction on the south end of Country Acres. Because the very first sewer we put through there went right down the middle of the street. And then did the last south slope from Buttermilk over. There's a question of a pinch point down there. Is that something we're gonna have to look at also?
It is, yes.
I didn't read that pinch point in here, but I know golf course lift station is probably our number one concern.
It is yes. Given that today it's having a problem keeping up, additional growth would obviously put more pressure on that.
Because that's taken on Sheridan Meadows and the one on the east side of 61 through that, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It takes on Sheridan Meadows. On the east side of 61 is the industrial park lift station. And then there's quite a bit of gravity flow. So it's pretty much the north central and northeastern part of the flow is coming to that lift station. It's a as it stands right now, it is it serves a lot of the city. Yep. But so that's a pitch point looking out west, and then going up to the northwest, Buttermilk Lagoon area is well served. Sheridan Meadows itself seems to have capacity. You can grow out east for quite a bit of development. So it's not, there's room to grow. There's just these pinch points, as you say, Brian, that might need to be taken care of. Well, they will need to be taken care of as growth happens. But overall, it's a dynamic, right? So there was like as an example, the last plan expansion kind of looked at historically, we've been residential flow, some commercial, a little bit industrial. So we had a population projection for that. That was out around 9,000 and 600 or 700. So compared today where we're just under 7,000. So quite a bit of growth population wise for residential. Where I'm going with that is industrial or commercial can have a whole different flow. So it isn't just linear. And as we look at who's going to come in, what kind of flow, what kind of loadings do they have? What does that equate to as we go?
But that could be a positive or a negative,
Yes,
depending on what the use is. I mean,
Yes.
processing, everything. Probably two different.
that's right. That's right. Yep. And there's capacity through the collection system, which is flow. The plant has a flow constraint too, but there's also loadings. And so if you get into some industries that have high strength waste being comparative to residential, we can use that kind of capacity too. So there's two ways of looking at things, but as you say, it's positive and negative. It's just how to balance it.
Users of contaminants. We can require them to pre-treat it before the system.
You can,
Yes.
yes. And in fact, if they're a major contributor, in part of your permit, you already have an industry that's, part of that or two. It's, maybe it's a little more than a request. The state, by your permit, the state kind of requires you to, so it might be a little more than a request, but yeah, you're right on track.
Did you guys look, I know that southwest area, that little area that we're talking about, possible annexation.
Yep.
Did you look north of that, up along Fillendale, if the city ever expands or footprint limits? But
We looked at the corporate limits coming down in that area as far as annexation, going farther northwest or north of that, we did not, so. That's a very high overview and I might have rambled, hopefully I didn't. But is there any other questions, or we can walk through the report a little more in detail? Just
I think the report is pretty thorough from the 10,000 foot look at it. If something comes up, we will, scrutinize something a lot more. Just as long as we have enough advanced capacity to get from wherever.
that's right. Yep.
Because the original South Slope, I think you had it in your 24 or 27-inch line.
Yep.
Then we put the other one in. There's two, like I said earlier, Country Acres, there's one down the street, and there's one to the west of the house instead.
Yep. And a lot of those, like Sheridan Meadows, the industrial park northeast, they do, well, in golf course, they all pump into gravity lines, and you got to be able to capture that pump flow. When the pumps come on, we got to convey that. Yep.
So we really have to be aware of the impacts long-term beyond our current corporate limits. Like if we would ever expand our corporate limits north of Sheridan Meadows, that lift station at Sheridan Meadows, it's got an X amount of capacity gallons per day.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's getting pumped multiple times to get,
Yeah, it does.
Is there anything that we can eliminate as far as having to have a force main and get it to a point where we can gravity more? Or are we pretty much at our limit?
I think kind of what sets that is the kind of the depths we're at, and overall Eldridge is pretty flat. So just for an example, like golf course, don't quote me on the exact number, but we're approaching 30 feet deep there.
Yeah.
That's a deep lift station. So to be able to gravity flow even farther, that's going to go deeper. 30 feet is a good depth. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in the trench.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Is there anything we can do to help the lift station, the golf course? Take some pressure off of that?
The, like Brian mentioned, maybe some lining or sewer repair. That is, it's a heavy rain that overflows that. And so at some point we're pumping storm water instead of wastewater. That's I'll be the first one to say that all sounds good until you start doing it. Sometimes, it's hard to predict those kind of results. One of the primary reasons is a lot of that infiltration and inflow might not be from the sewer, the city-owned sewer. It might be from homeowners' service, which they own from their house over to the sewer. That might be a lot of the inflow. And so that takes a partnership with the homeowner. There is probably gains to be made. I just kind of want to set the stage that it's not just A plus B equals C always.
Well, and also the water draining ultimately that ends up there. There's a lot of farm ground that not been developed, that doesn't have detention or retention areas. So as things grow, we might be able to have a positive impact on some of the inflow specifically to that lift station.
Yeah.
So maybe it went over in comments, what you're saying.
What's that?
So at least to slow it down then, so then it wouldn't be so overcoming when we have heavy rains.
Well, the saturation of the detention, retention area is gonna be away from there, and it'll slowly let it down. There used to be times people used to be in kayaks going down that drainage way across the golf course there. There's a lot of water that comes through there.
Tony and Zach, is the old Fellner's Edition on septics or are they hooked up to city sewer? So that's it, but they have pressurized city water. No, they're on
No,
wells
they're
out there
well.
too. Is there any future thought of that? Bring that to that area?
I thought Hunter Lane was also.
That's what I thought. I remember seeing a fire hydrant out there.
Yeah.
So part of the old additions, well, and Hunter Lane's city water, but yeah, Hunter Lane has septic.
They all have septics.
Okay.
Frank, do you remember when the sheriff's department was looking at going in Black Hawk Trail and Cut Park Road?
Mhm.
There was a way we could gravity the sewer from there to the north to tie into that manhole to go through that subdivision and come down. There still is that sleeve under 61 south of Black Hawk Trail. I think that was a 12-inch sleeve underneath 61. I mean, the other possibility may be, as east of 61 develops, to get a trunk feed from there south, then across to take some weight off of stuff on the west side, but that's years out before that's developed.
Now, kind of piggyback it. Some of what we're saying is capital improvement and things, just like on 61 where there's already a connection. A lot of that is as it develops, it's kind of hard to predict who will sell and who wants to develop, but we just want that. It would be beneficial if the sewer is sized for future growth. So we don't create pinch points and kind of the same way going out west is they'll take a lift station. But we looked at it holistically, so you don't end up with 5 lift stations. I'm making up a number, but you don't end up with 5 different lift stations to maintain, to convey flow. Instead, we know it takes one. Let's make that worthwhile to do.
Some are a little better, or just going under 80 to open up all that north of 80. They put in that huge lift station there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So.
Tony, do you remember that sleeve? I know it's always been a question, but the problem wasn't the sleeve, it was the pipe diameter on Trellis Road.
Yes. The pipe that ends at basically under construction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's small.
Like I said, I think this is a good report to give us direction for the future, you know, from the 10,000 foot viewpoint.
Yeah, ultimately the goal is just for it to be kind of a roadmap as development starts to come in, to kind of give the city, kind of options. So.
Any other questions, guys?
No, thank you, like Ryan said, it's good stuff.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if we don't have any else, I'll make a motion to adjourn the committee.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, if I say thank you, let's get adjourned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. That's
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
They do, and